Welcome back. You are watching KTN News Desk. Glad to have you here with us. Now, the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Public Service, Youth and Gender Affairs, Rachel Shebesh, together with Tharaka Nithi Women Representative Beatrice Nkatha, have officiated the launch of sanitary pads distribution to girls' public schools within the county. More than 45,000 girls are expected to benefit from the program. The function was held in Chuka Town earlier on this morning.
Watoto wa Tharaka Nithi County hasa wasichana tena hata misi class hata siku moja. Manake tumeangaliwa na tumeangaliwa mzuri. Kwa hivyo leo, siku ya leo ilikuwa ni ya msichana. Nimesikia mengi kuhusu vijana na wanaume na ile maneno mengine yote. Na hiyo yote tunajua serikali ya Kenya inaangalia.
We were not feeling whether the girls are getting these sanitary pads. We were not feeling it on the ground because we were women reps, we were going to the ground, and we were not feeling the sanitary pads. And we lobbied at that time to the president, why don't you transfer the distribution of sanitary pads from the Ministry of Education to the Ministry of Public Service, Youth and Gender, because through that we have gender officers and we have youth officers on the ground who can assure us that the pads have reached the child. But there is a discrimination in school about girls because of their periods. So I don't like issues being trivialized. There is no way you can tell me that because we are giving sanitary pads to girls, that we are discriminating boys.
Now, Dr. Richard Lesiampe, the Principal Secretary in the State Department of Agriculture, was this morning questioned by members of the Parliamentary Accounts Committee over subsidized fertilizer. PAC wanted the officials to respond to audit queries surrounding the procurement of subsidized fertilizer following irregularities revealed by Auditor General Edward Ouko in his 2014-2016 and 2015-2016 audit reports.
That is the one that awarded the tender. And the letter with which the tender was awarded, you have just now tabled it. And that's fine, we'll get back to it. You are still maintaining, based on information from your team, that after the notification, there was no indication by the person awarded that they were willing to tender or to comply with the tender. And you are going on to say that it is evident that they quoted lower than the prices. For us, that does not concern us for now. Because if you want to go at a loss and comply with the tender, that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But you are saying that despite the very clear letter that they wrote to you on 29th December, 7 days later, expressing willingness to comply and deliver the products as per the terms and conditions stipulated. This is 7 days later. And then, instead of now telling us what you did after that response, you now jump to the conclusion that they could not have supplied it anyway, and that therefore you needed to have a second meeting. That meeting is the 19th meeting, which was had on 20th January 2015. That is about 3 weeks later after receiving this letter. And you're not telling us that between receiving this letter, you have tendered. Somebody has been awarded and they've said, we are willing to comply at that price. Then you go to the second lowest bidder and your answer that you're maintaining is that they did not sign, they did not show a willingness to tender. That cannot be right because they have shown. At the very least, the team would tell us that having received this letter and in view of the time, these are the steps they took to tell Global Link, you now have only 14 days. Please note that if you don't sign the document within 14 days, then we cancel. You are not showing us that. So I am still not satisfied as to the jump from the lowest bidder to the second one.
Yeah, and again, yeah, Honorable Commissioner.
And again, Mr. Chairman, I think the Auditor General is very, very clear. He requested for the management the document of that disqualified bidder. And the document were not available, which shows what Honorable Otiende is saying is actually true, that actually in one or the other, there's unfair play which was done. Was the document not, why was the document not available at the time of request? That's my first question. Do you have the document at the moment? were you refusing to give the document because the disqualification was unfair, and you don't want to prove that actually it is unfair? Thank you.
As you answer that, and the other one, I'm trying to look at this contract agreement that you claim to have sent to Global Link East Africa. I can't see it unless somebody else can see it. Oh. Why are you tabling them selectively? Okay. Huh? Why are they coming in piecemeal?
Chair, when I was going through these responses, which were done by my officers, I actually demanded that I needed to get all these documents. And I think that's why by yesterday, that's when they got me this, the document that we wrote to Global Link.
They were deliberately keeping them away from you?
I don't think so, I think they also had challenges, I think, in getting these documents.
Okay, as you signed them,
yes.
Did the performance parts eventually supply the fertilizer? Just take note of that question. And this is the same company that was in the previous contract supposed to have been a company for women. Is that correct? Also confirm that. In the previous contract, the one that cost us 2.1 billion shillings, okay? The one of subsidy. It tendered, it bid as a company for women, I suppose. Is that correct?
Yes, Honorable Chair, it's correct.
And won?
Yes, it won, Honorable Chair.
Okay. I may be ignorant, but then I think these women companies are supposed to be companies which are being supported through an affirmative action for them to come at par with the rest. But then it seems that all of a sudden they have developed the capacity to play in the league of the big guys. You see, it has graduated from a special women company to the main company that's able to perform a contract of almost 1 billion shillings overnight, so to speak. So what is the explanation? But more importantly, and finally on my part, who was the woman? Who was the actual woman behind this company? In other words, we are asking for the list of the directors of this company, as at the time it was awarded this contract. That we must get. Plus the contract. The contract was there. Yeah. And as you do that, please also, in addition to what we had earlier on asked, give us the list of the directors. Give us the list. If I forget, the list of the directors of the Hulbert Limited, as at the time it won that initial contract of 3 years, and they are Kenyan promoters. Because you mentioned it is a company based in the UK, must be having a Kenyan promoter. I suppose Performance Parts is a Kenyan-owned company, because we can't be promoting women of other countries, I suppose. So please answer those questions here.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I think, Honorable Chair, I want to acknowledge the fact that we don't seem to have documents, between the date we gave an offer to Global Link East Africa Limited and the time that we actually constituted the procurement committee in 2014. And my position is that it is true, Global Link actually acknowledged and were ready to, I say, if I can even read their document, they are saying, we are ready to supply and deliver the products as per the terms and conditions stipulated in the tender document, which is actually part also of the contract requirements. According to information I have, is that the contract documents were not returned by Global Link. And if they did not return the tender document, the assumption was that they are not able, to supply this fertilizer. And that's why the procurement tender committee decided to meet after 30 days from effective 22nd December 2014. They met on 20th of January, which is actually exactly 30 days, to deliberate on the matter and, go for the second lowest bidder so that we can indeed procure this fertilizer for our farmers to have it before the long rains. So that's what I can present, Honorable Chair. I'm not saying that there were no indication from Global Link that they were really to participate in this. It is there. But the contract document had to be returned, signed for it to demonstrate their capability to supply. And what I have in records is that they did not return these documents. And Honorable Chair, I think it's my prayer that the owner of Global Link East Africa Limited is Mr. Stephen Muchoki. I think if you can actually look for him, we can actually get him, even to explain whether this is actually true or not true. Because, this is 2014, and I think I cannot get any empirical or, any document.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. Now, on the issue of performance parts, yeah, it is true, and I think Oseko probably will have to give more explanation on this. It is performance parts that actually won this, and they supplied. I can't confirm whether it's for 3 years, but Oseko will confirm the same. The name of the person or the owner of this company, I don't know whether there are more than one. What I have from my officers here is that the name is Teresa Kariuki. Teresa Kariuki is the owner of performance parts.
Teresa Kariuki.
Yes, Honorable Chair.
Okay. Okay, Teresa Kariuki. Bwana PS, as we move to the next issue, because we shall make a termination, definitely. Yeah. Bwana PS, if it were you who was in charge during this period in time, would you have handled this procurement process in the same manner?
Honorable Chair, what I would like to say is that...
or what differently, what could you have done differently from what was done here?
Honorable Chair, probably what I can say, from not the theory but the practice of management, is that we make decisions, depending on the information, the resources and the agency of that particular time. And whatever decisions I make today, probably 3 days after today, circumstances will change, and probably I could be said I made the wrong decision. And I think that's why we call in management science, the theory of satisficing.
No, I know where you're going to. But
so what I'm trying to say, Honorable Chair, is that if during that period, I think talking about 2014, my assumption is that somebody must have attempted to call probably Global Link, ask them you have not brought your contract, what are the challenges, given the agency of fertilizer, in particular, with the experience I've had the last 2 years. So that's my assumption.
You would have called.
At least somebody should have called.
Correct.
Particularly the officers who are in charge of this section. So, and if possible, I think probably if they could not deliver, I had no option but indeed to constitute another procurement team, to have the team actually go for the next level or even the second bidder, given the urgency of it.
You would have made efforts.
Yes,
to reach out to
reach out. Yes, I'll
globally.
Yeah, that one I could. Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's the point, Chairman. May the record reflect, and Dr. Lesiampe, in your first level of response, your position was that Global Link did not respond.
Well, members of the Parliamentary Accounts Committee earlier on grilling the Principal Secretary in the Department of Agriculture, Dr. Richard Lesiampe, over a fertilizer scandal. And of course, with regard to an audit queries that were raised by the Auditor General from the financial year 2014 to 2015 and 2015 to 2016. Now, 5 members of Parliament have demanded that Health Cabinet Secretary Cecily Kariuki be made to step aside over the loss of 9 9 billion Kenya shillings at the National Youth Service, failure to which they will start collecting signatures to censure her. Kariuki was the Public Service Cabinet Secretary when the suspicious payments were made. Members of Parliament Silvanus Osoro, Tindi Mwale, Bashir Abdullahi, Moses Kirimi and Abdikarim Osman said the war on corruption cannot be won if Cecily Kariuki is still in office. South Mugirango Member of Parliament Silvanus Osoro is among those who are pushing for the resignation of Cecily Kariuki over the NYS 9 billion shillings scam. He's now joining us live from our city centre studios. A very good afternoon to you. Thank you, Silvanus, for making time for us. I mean, this is the second time that we are seeing attempts to have Cecily Kariuki step aside. Just give us some of your reasons behind this time round.
Thank you very much, Akisa. I mean, Kenyans should know that everything rises and falls on leadership. And there is no way one can separate the head from the neck or the neck from the head. Cecily Kariuki was the Minister for Public Service then that heads NYS. And at no point, I mean, it will be wrong to say that the PS and her officers engaged themselves in the 9 billion scandal without the know-how or without the know of the then minister, who is Cecily Kariuki. So we are saying this time around that if we have to fight corruption, we need to fight it wholesomely. Parliament should engage in fighting corruption. The judiciary should be upfront in fighting corruption. And every unit in this government should be serious in fighting corruption. And for us to appear as serious, then we should start from the head. PS Lillian Omolo is in prison, remand, waiting for the application of bail that they had sorted, or they had sought in the High Court. And from the High Court, of course, appealing the earlier decision by the Magistrates Court. I mean, really, why should we then let Cecily Kariuki walk scot-free as though nothing happened when she was in charge? She knew what was happening in her ministry. She should be ousted by all means. And what we are saying is that the President of the Republic of Kenya, who is actually ahead, who is leading this war against corruption, and is the appointing authority, should now go an extra mile of telling Cecily Kariuki to step aside pending investigations. Let the CID officers summon the minister on what she knows about the corruption scandal, and then have her tried equally, just like her colleagues. And if that one does not happen within the time that we've given, which is 7 days, then what we are going to do is that we are going to use our legislative powers in Parliament, in the House, to make sure that Cecily Kariuki is impeached. She simply must go home. She messed in the public service. Now she's in the Ministry of Health. We do not really know what again she's going to do. Because if she oversaw 9 billion getting lost, then clearly she can also see or rather mess in the Ministry of Health. So I am on record having defended Cecily Kariuki when she had an issue in the Ministry of Health with the Kenya National Hospital, which I said she took a prompt decision then and said that the CEO should step aside. That is the right decision to have done then. But this time round, if she oversaw Lillian Omolo and her officers squander and take 9 billion shillings unaccounted for, then clearly that shows that she ought to have told them to step aside before this scandal gets out. So what we are saying is she must be impeached by all means.
War on corruption currently that we are witnessing, and even the calls for fresh vetting of some officers of government, is pretentious when you still have some people like Cecily Kariuki in your particular narrative still in office?
Yes. There is no way you will go. You go for small fish. You're going for procurement officers, very mere procurement officers, small procurement officers, and accounting officers. When a person who oversaw that is still in office, if we are genuinely fighting corruption as we are doing, and we want to believe that the president is very genuine, we are actually joining him, then we should start from the head. We need to tell people to take political responsibility and leadership responsibility. I think we need to live in this country in a way that if something happens and you're mentioned in a mega scandal, I mean, you simply need to step aside. Morality, we need to live within high levels of morals. That you just don't assume that somebody else should take responsibility when you are the head. We are saying, okay, fine, the step taken by His Excellency the President to have the procurement officers and accounting officers step aside, although it has been stayed by the High Court, of Kenya. That is a right step to do. But again, we cannot start cutting the tree from its branches. We need to cut the tree right from its roots down at the stem. And the person here to take serious responsibility was the then minister. And you know, this is not new. We should not pretend that this is very new. When Anne Waiguru was mentioned in the then scandal again, involving NYS, we were all over saying, okay, fine, Anne Waiguru should step aside. She went for, she stepped aside for health issues, as she claimed then, which was a very good step. I mean, you cannot just be mentioned and stay in office. Right now, the very same NYS has been mentioned. Who is in question this time round? The Minister for Health, Cecily Kariuki. Why is it that people are keeping quiet about Cecily Kariuki? I mean, what is she? I mean, she was the minister then. Why should we keep quiet and ignore that everything is right and she's running another ministry?
Osoro, this is not the first time.
Honest to ourselves.
Yes. Osoro, this is not the first time we're seeing a push like this against Cecily Kariuki, and you say that you're giving the government 7 days, failure to which you will start collecting signatures, and therein lies the biggest obstacle because of the kind of alignments in Parliament. How are you going to wade through that?
If you saw the presser that we gave yesterday involving the 5 members, and of course the rest who are on their way could not make it on time or in time, you'll notice that the people who sat for that presser come from different political alignments. And we had Honorable Moses Krema, who is a member of parliament in Meru and is a Jubilee member of parliament. We got Honorable Bashir, who is a Jubilee member of parliament. I mean, then we had Ford Kenya member of parliament, Honorable Tindi Mwale, not Ford Kenya, ANC member of parliament, and several others that we had that have shown interest in this matter. I want to say that the war on corruption goes beyond party alignments. And the mood of the country is that we need to fight corruption by all means. You haven't had any politician come out to defend any person for the purposes of saying, oh, he comes from my region or she comes from my region. The last time Cecily Kariuki survived, and I can say, as I said earlier, I am on record having defended her, again, fully, that then she was being accused of not taking a step, or rather telling Lillian, the then CEO, Kenya National Hospital, to step aside. And for me, I was actually saying, and I even told my colleagues, that the step she took is the right step as a leader. Somebody has been mentioned on an issue, then the best thing she did then was to tell the CEO to step aside. So impeaching her was actually witch hunt. It was witch hunting her, yet she had taken a step. What we are saying right now is this. Why didn't she take a step then, before this scandal came out, before she moved into another ministry? Why didn't she take a step to have officers involved step aside? If then we say that she didn't know, she wasn't in the know of what was happening, then it's a clear show of incompetence. It's actually a clear show of incompetence that a leader can be at that helm of that serious position, and you do not really know what procurement issues are happening in your ministry. Then when we get now then back to Parliament and mention and talk about alignments, I'll tell you that this time round has nothing to do with politics. This thing has nothing to do with the tribe. It has nothing to do with region. We all want to fight this corruption once and for all. And I'll tell you, the mood of the House is so, exciting. Every person wants, actually, I've received about 70 members calling me for, to take them the signing sheet. They are ready to sign. And we only need 100. So we must say that Cecily Kariuki is going home. And we are not debating about that. She's actually going home if she's not going to step aside, or rather she's not going to be made to step aside by His Excellency the President.
Osoro, quickly, I want us to wind down this conversation, but the investigative bodies have not gone for Cecily Kariuki. She's not been mentioned by any of these investigative bodies or the anti-corruption agencies. How then do you expect her to step aside, yet she hasn't been implicated even in the ongoing investigations? Quickly.
Now, I do not really understand why the EACC and all the investigative bodies are not going for her. And it's in black and white that she was the minister then. That should be, it's actually worrying that a person who was in charge of a ministry is not being called. I do not want to preempt what they are doing, or rather to, assume that they are not going to call her. But you're only saying that if Cecily Kariuki is not in their list of the people to be investigated, then the investigation is a PR exercise. If she's not part of the people being investigated for the mega scandal that happened in the NYS when she was a minister, then clearly this is a PR exercise. She needs to be called upon to write at least then a statement. She was the minister.
All right.
So we are taking responsibility as leaders and using Parliament, using our strength in Parliament, our powers in Parliament, we will now take that role up and have her impeached.
Thank you very much for speaking to us here on KTN News Desk. Silvanus Osoro is the Member of Parliament for South Mugirango. Among those who are spearheading that particular move, the fresh calls to have Cecily Kariuki step aside, given that he was the CS when the 9 billion shillings was getting lost, so to speak, at the NYS. And they say they're giving the government, they're giving her 7 days to step aside, failure to which they will start collecting signatures from legislators to have her officially impeached. I want us to take a quick break here on KTN News Desk. We still have a lot more Landa for you. We'll be taking a look at what else is happening across our borders. And of course, at 2:30 p.m., Moses Wahisi will be coming in with sports news. Don't go too far.